Hello friends, we'll have a talk on the Indian economy. We will look at the Indian economy in a certain fashion. We'll look at what was the state of affairs like in the Indian economy before 1991. We'll also look at the situation after 1991. But what brought us to the situation in 1991? For that, for us to understand that, we would need to look at what was the state of the Indian economy between 1947 and 1991. At the time the British left India, what was the state of affairs? Well, we were in a pretty bad shape. The British had bled us bone dry. They took away millions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars worth of our wealth. So that left us in a pretty bad shape. Our services sector was non-existent. We didn't have a great industrial base except for in iron and steel and war industries. And of course, we also were pretty poor as far as agriculture is concerned, because the British neglected Indian agriculture, except that they promoted those sectors which were in their interest, like cotton, tobacco, you know. Um, After independence, what kind of an economic system did we follow? Well, we followed the mixed economic model. Now, as you would know, capitalism is all about private sector, right to property, profits. Socialism on the other sector, on the other side, is more of state control, public sector, almost no scope for profits. But as far as the mixed economy is concerned, you would have both the public as well as the private sector, and sometimes the joint sector, where the public and the private sectors would come together to get on with the business of production. Now, we also brought in socialist ideas, which were that this economic model that we had, the mixed economic model, had an overwhelming sense of socialism. That is, there was a greater emphasis on the state's role in commanding the economy. In that light, we also have to understand our industrial policies. The industrial policy resolution of 1948, then in 56, then in 77, all focused on the industries. But then you have to understand that we started off with focus on the basic and heavy industries in the first two resolutions. Then in the third one in 1977, we went to focus on small and cottage industries. But these policies that government of India pursued back in those days had this microscopic view of government control. The government would keep an eagle eye on what you were doing. That the government told you, look Bharat, my name is Bharat, look Bharat, if you wanted to start a business, you would need a license, and if you would start a manufacturing unit, you would have a quota restriction. That is, you can manufacture only an n number of units. Even though there was a demand for 1,000 units, I could produce only, let's say, what the government would ask me to produce, that is, would allow me to produce, that is something, let's say, 500 units. So that also led to a lot of scarcity, a lot of black marketing. There was a lot of premium on certain factors, and of course this also led to a decrease in foreign trade, because we weren't exporting a lot, we weren't producing a lot, we weren't exporting a lot, but we were importing a lot of stuff which we didn't have. So which also led to a foreign exchange crisis. We didn't have adequate foreign exchange. So this will form a part of our video talk. Now, this lack of foreign exchange also brought us to a situation wherein we had to pawn our gold twice, and then we went to the IMF, because pawning the gold, mortgaging the gold, was not sufficient. So we went to the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, which said that, okay, you need money to pay for your to pay your foreign loans, to pay for imports, because back in 1991 we barely had $800 million that would have been sufficient for us to pay for 4 weeks of imports. And after that, what? So what the IMF told us is this, that we will lend you money, but you would have to go for structural adjustment facility, SAF. And that's what we did. We, as part of the SAF, started a new policy called the New Economic Policy. This was no longer the policy of permit Raj. You needed a license to start a business, you had quota restriction, you had a monopoly control. No, the government said, okay guys, we are coming out with a new economic policy, the chief feature of which would be the LPG idea: liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Ladies and gentlemen, liberalization is about liberating certain sectors of the economy from government control. So it's also called deregulation. Coming to the P there, the letter P there stands for privatization, which is selling off government owned factories, businesses to private companies. And of course, the G would stand for globalization, which is like, integrating the Indian economy with the global economy. Now, this would happen in two ways. One, of course, would be by reducing tariffs, taxes. Tariff, T-A-R-I-F-F, is another word for tax. Here we are talking of import duties. So we would need to reduce our import duties so as to allow foreign goods to come into India. This would also address the issue of scarcity of goods. But then, it would mean that foreign goods could come into India, and this could also spoil the market for the domestic goods. But then we had pretty little choice, ladies and gentlemen. So we had, one, reducing tariffs. We were asked to reduce tariffs on imports, and two, do away with import quotas so that foreign goods could come into the country without any restriction. So lowering taxes and opening certain sectors. So that was how we integrated our economy into the global economy. So liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Of course, the government also allowed foreign direct investment. Foreign direct investment is about allowing foreign companies to set up a business in India. Of course, either as a joint venture in partnership with an Indian business, or sometimes as a wholly owned subsidiary. So in certain sectors, the like for example, greenfield airports, 100% FDI is allowed. 100% FDI is allowed. But when it comes to certain things like insurance, 74% FDI is allowed. Defense, sometimes certain areas 49, certain 74, but overall it's 49 basically. And airlines, of course, 49%. So foreign airlines could come to India, set up a venture in India, but the maximum foreign investment they could bring in is 49% of the total capital. For the rest of the money, they would have to, rest of the capital, they would need an Indian, resident investor basically. So, of course, at the time of our independence in 47, when I say independence, I'm talking of from British control. Foreign trade was very minuscule actually. It was less than 0.5%. Today it is 2.52%, 2.4%. Different data sources will give you different numbers. Sometimes you would find it as 2.52, sometimes you would find it as 2.42, sometimes you would, in some place you would find it as 2.25. Do not worry too much about it. So a little over little under 2.5. So today our share in global foreign trade is 2.4%. Our aim is to bring it to about 10% by the end of this decade, which is highly unlikely. But we are doing quite well, my friends. We are doing quite well. Of course, in our video talk, we'll also look at all the facts and figures, all kinds of data points, RBI policies, monetary policies. We'll look at how, certain how interest rates, when they change, impact inflation and all that stuff. We'll look at what's GDP in nominal terms, what's GDP in PPP terms. We'll look at different data points and try to understand all of these in our video talk on the Indian economy. So ladies and gentlemen, please tune into our video talk on the Indian economy. Thank you.